Good morning and welcome everyone to County Executive Pittman's virtual press conference. This morning, the County Executive will provide updates on the county's eviction protection efforts in light of the federal and state moratoriums ending. We'll take questions after. As a reminder, please put your name and media affiliation in the chat and I'll call on folks for questions in that order. And also please keep your microphone and camera off unless you're called on to ask a question. We are recording this meeting. With that, Mr. County Executive.
Thanks, Jeff. So most of you were with us yesterday when we talked about the Delta variant COVID and the things that we're doing in Anne Arundel County to respond. We want to focus today on another impact of the pandemic, which is eviction and the work that's been going on in Anne Arundel County and some of the changes that we're making in that work to keep people in their homes, folks who have been renting and are behind on their rent. And so I have with us from Anne Arundel Community Development Services, Kathy Koch, the director, as well as from Community Legal Services, Kathy Hughes, and our general counsel at ACDS as well, Lisa Serra, to answer questions and to give some detail. But I just want to start by saying how proud I am of the work that they've done. Anne Arundel County, I think you probably remember, was the first to set up an eviction prevention program before there was a CARES Act. We used some of our casino revenue and general funds to make that happen. And then when the CARES Act came, there was additional funding, and we've continued to fund it with additional federal resources. And as we've learned how to do this work, we've grown the operation. And so we're going to talk about some of those things. So far, we've gotten out $12.5 million in direct payments to primarily landlords and tenants to keep people in their homes, 2,400 households served by that. I believe that's the most of any county in Maryland other than Prince George's, which has a larger program and a larger problem and a larger population. The key to it, though, is that in addition to the team that we have doing the actual negotiations with each tenant, getting the checks out to the landlords to keep people in their homes, we've got legal services that we provide. And that's been incredibly important. We started out just with our general counsel, Lisa Serra, but early in the year when things got worse and we knew that the evictions were coming, we added 3 attorneys, 1 paralegal, and 1 legal assistant to help with that work. And it's coordinated with the eviction prevention program. So we call it the eviction prevention legal program, and then the eviction prevention program that provides the actual funding. So they have set up an office adjacent to the district court in Glen Burnie so that people can, the coordination can be done with the courts. They have coordinated with the sheriff. They have the eviction calendar of the sheriff so that they can put to the top of the list for funding the ones that are most at risk of being evicted. Chief Administrative Judge of the District Court, Judge McKenna, has been very helpful and stayed in touch with our legal team. And we have a proposal to the District Court for a rental assistance diversion program so that every case would be sent to our legal team, and the judges be aware of the program, landlords be aware of the program, with the hope that the landlords get paid rather than have to move forward with eviction, and folks stay in their units. Of the cases that we've actually represented people in court, 89 that have gone to court, every single one has been resolved that those folks have been able to stay in their apartments or their houses. And in addition to that, I believe another 160 were dismissed as a result of our work, and another at least 237, I believe, households have received consultations with the attorneys that have helped them then resolve their cases. The key to this is outreach, of course. Folks have to know about the services, and we've done that through our team at ACDS, but also our Office of Emergency Management, a lot of our nonprofit partners, our county agencies, Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, Social Services. Everybody is sending folks when they find out that they have that they're behind on rent, sending them over to this program. We work with United Way and their STEP program. We've devoted $5 million to some of the bulk payments with large landlords. We've negotiated some of those bulk programs as well with the larger landlords. We've worked with the Maryland Multi-Housing Association and helped gotten them engaged in the process of negotiating landlord agreement so that landlords don't evict for 90 days at least after they receive any payments. And we've got a program with the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis, where over 50% of their tenants are behind on rent. And so that's moving forward as well as an example of one of these bulk programs. So if you are behind on your rent, you'll get information here about how to contact the program. And please stay in your apartment. Once you leave, you can no longer get the assistance. And if you're asked to appear in court, please do. But most importantly, contact our folks at Arundel Community Development Services. So I'm going to pass it over, I believe, to Kathy Koch next with some detail.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. County Executive. I'm always just in awe of your ability to explain everything that we're doing, and I'll see what I'm basically going to be repeating a lot of what our county exec has said, because he has done an excellent job in explaining what we've been doing. But I think one of the very first thing is our robust eviction prevention. We've had it out there since February 16th. We've been processing applications. What we've done in the last month as we start to see the moratorium come to an end is that we've increased the number of partners that we have to get those funds out there. Like our county exec referred to a partnership with Children, Youth, and Family, the Lighthouse, our very important community action agency. And we recently went under contract with our housing commission so that our housing commission can make sure that their tenants and people who have housing choice vouchers are also able to access the program. And the thing that we're getting ready to do next is that we will be entering a contract with United Way. Our program is a tenant-based, and all the programs with the partners I just mentioned is a tenant-based application process, but we will be adding and expanding by going under contract with United Way, and that will be a landlord-based application process, and we'll be working with specific landlords in the county. So we're prioritizing grouping and processing as fast as we can. And we also have a very important contract with Center of Help to make sure that we're helping all aspects of our population and helping people get their applications in. What we've done in the last couple of weeks also is that anticipation of the moratorium coming to an end is that we've increased our outreach to landlords. Our general counsel, Lisa Soros, works very closely with all the landlords, not only the large landlords, which we've made a really good effort to make sure we're in contact with them. They know exactly how our program works, and they know what kind of paperwork they have to get in to allow us to help their tenants, but also some of the smaller landlords, doing outreach and working with a lot of the smaller landlords to make sure they understand exactly how the process works. The other really important thing, like our county exec said, is we've increased our legal assistance. We've more than doubled the contract with Community Legal Services. And you'll be hearing from Kathy Hughes in just a couple minutes to talk about some of the successes that we've had with our ability. They've added 3 more attorneys, a paralegal, and a legal assistant. And then to help them do their job even better, we've added office space up adjacent to the courts up in the Glen Burnie area so that the judges can refer clients quickly to them. They can have space to meet one-on-one with the clients and help them provide the assistance they need to be able to stay housed. And then in addition, what we did was we added another office space to put one of our staff members, one of the ACDS staff members up there who actually processes the eviction applications. And so that the judges can also, we can figure out exactly where that person is in our application process. We can prioritize them to the top to make sure that eviction doesn't happen. And then we also are increasing the coordination between Community Legal Services and our application process, so everybody knows exactly where a client is and what kind of assistance a client needs in order to stop that eviction. And again, I think I'm really, really proud of what we've done with the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office has been wonderful in working with us. They will be providing that list every morning, and we have just gotten that underway, and we already have 4 successes that we can talk about this morning. That with the evictions, we're able to be where we got the list. We were able to find out exactly where they were in our application process. Again, get to prioritize them and make sure. And the whole effort is to make sure that we keep as many people housed as we can. And then the last thing that we're increasing and working on is, again, our general counsel and the staff at Community Legal Services is doing a great job in working with Judge McKenna. Judge McKenna has been absolutely wonderful with us as we work on various ways to coordinate between our program and the assistance that we have available in the court system, and whether there's a possibility as we go forward to do a voluntary postponement, just a little bit of time, so that we can see if that client is eligible for assistance and see what kind of assistance we can get to the landlord. So those are some of the, I really think I'm proud of the robust processes. We've had a pretty good process in place. And then in the last couple of weeks, we've just upped our game to make sure that we keep as many people housed as possible. And as our county exec said, it's really important, if you're someone out there who needs assistance, is to stay housed. If you leave the house, you know, there is, you really, you then have to enter into our homeless program. And so that if you're still in the unit, we can provide assistance through this program. And as I always say, we have the funds. The federal government has made funds available for this. We believe we have enough funds to help everybody who is eligible. We just need time to be able to get to everybody. So it's important to stay housed. The second thing that is, if you get a notice from the court system, show up in that court, and we will make sure that Community Legal Services is there to provide you the assistance that you need, but you do need to make sure that you show up. And then lastly, I'll say that if you're a landlord and you have tenants and you're running a business and you need to get paid, we're here to help you with that too. So we have a wonderful webpage, acds.org. And you can go to that webpage and find more information on how to apply. And also there's special information just for landlords and answering all the questions that landlords might have, because you are our partners and we want to get you paid. We want to keep people housed and we want to get you paid. So that's what, and I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce Kathy Hughes. Is that correct? Okay. So I'm going to introduce Kathy Hughes from Community Legal Services, a partner I'm really proud to have in this county. About a year ago, we went under contract with them with funds provided through the county to help pay for their assistance. And they're playing a very, very important role within our court system. So I'll let Kathy explain the role that they play.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a lovely introduction. And thank you, County Executive Pittman, for having us today to be able to talk about the services that we're providing in conjunction with Arundel Community Development Services. What we're trying to do really is, our role here is to keep the roof over people's heads until the money can get through the pipeline. And that is really our primary goal, and we've been very successful at being able to do that. There's an education component to that, of course. And we're trying to educate the landlord's representatives when they come into court about what they can be telling, or the information they need to get to the property owners about how the program works and how it can work to their benefit. I'm going to tell you just a couple of, give you a couple of examples about the way that our programs have really worked together. I too want to give a shout out to the Sheriff's Office, because they really are the last firewall between that individual and being on the street. And a chance encounter in late July with a sheriff by a tenant in a large complex. She's a senior citizen and is immunocompromised. And her chance encounter with the sheriff, who was out there posting on the property about upcoming hearings, led to the dismissal of 160 cases in the district court in Annapolis. The sheriff gave her our information, and then called me to give me a heads up that he hoped that she would be calling us, that she really needed help, and that perhaps we could get her involved with the eviction prevention program. So she contacted us, and we worked twofold. We worked with her on the court end of things, but we also referred her, of course, to the eviction prevention program. They were able to help her individually because she had access problems. She couldn't quite manage that online access. So they were able to hook her up with somebody to get her in the system. What happened was we represented her, but our contact with Arundel Community Development Services also revealed that there were several other people in the pipeline who had already been approved for funding at this particular complex, who were just waiting for confirmation of a rental license, an active rental license in Annapolis. And so when we went back and looked at this person's the complaint that the landlord had filed, we realized that there were some major deficiencies in that complaint. There were licensing deficiencies. They hadn't reported about the lead certification. They hadn't properly completed the declaration for the Department of Defense saying that no person was in the military service. And there were also some issues around notice. So we were able to go and represent this one individual. And then there were two other individuals in the pipeline at ACDS who were referred to us. So by taking those three cases and explaining to the judge the deficiencies in the filings, that led to the dismissal of all of those cases, the 160 cases that had been filed by the landlord. They do file in bulk. And so it's very, very difficult to get to all of the people that need help. A lot of people aren't going to court right now because they've just started back up with their jobs, and they need to be working, and or they have childcare problems or whatever it is, they have real difficulty, or they don't have transportation. So we're really trying to up our game in terms of ensuring that folks get to court and seeing whatever we can do to help them. I think, I've been very, very appreciative of all of the coordination and the opportunity that we've been given to help folks in a very, very tangible way. And we've had many, many successes where the funding comes through, people stay housed, and they are being housed 3 months into the future. And then after that, they can reapply. So we're really pleased with the progress of the program so far. Thanks.
Thank you,
Kathy.
Yeah, and at the beginning of this pandemic, we said that fundamental obligation of local government, state partners, and federal partners is to keep our people healthy, keep our people fed, and to keep our people housed. So, thank you, all of you, for what you were doing on that. And before we go into questions, I just want to quickly mention that tonight is National Night Out. I will be at all 4 National Night Outs in Anne Arundel County tonight: Crofton Library, 10th Avenue Park in Brooklyn Park, Early Heights Fire Department, and Lewis Scott Community Center in South County. And I hope to see some of you there. And then tomorrow night, we have our budget tour in District 2, where we're with Councilwoman Pickard, going to be presenting some of the things in the recently passed budget that are going to benefit District 2. So with that, back to you, Jeff, for questions.
Thank you, folks. We'll turn that over to questions now. Again, if you put your name and media affiliation in the chat, and I'll call on you in that order. All right, John Frenay, Annapolis.
How are you today? This may have been answered earlier, but do we know exactly or close enough how many families or how many units are impacted with that are threatened with eviction at this point?
This is Kathy Koch with Arundel Community Development Services. That's an ongoing changing number. We have over 1,200 applications in the process right now, and that's increasing every day. But if you do look at the national averages, and the national average has approximately 15% of the renters who are having a difficult time paying their rents.
Okay, and then the other question I had, and I know you mentioned about the sheriff working with the sheriff's office and stuff like that. Can you explain, like, what is the process of from all of a sudden a landlord saying, "Hey, you owe me the rent. I need you out," and then the time that the sheriff actually comes and puts it out? I mean, what is the time frame on that?
Okay, I'm going to turn to Lisa Saros, who is our legal counsel and knows the eviction process quite well, and to Kathy.
Sure. So there's really about 4 steps in an eviction actually occurring. So the landlord files a complaint for failure to pay rent, and that complaint is heard. If a judgment is entered for possession, then 4 days later, that landlord can go into court and request what's called a writ of possession. And the writ of possession is what I call the ticket to eviction. That's the ticket, the piece of paper that the landlord takes to the sheriff to actually tell the sheriff, I have authority to evict this tenant, use this warrant of restitution, writ of possession, to schedule an eviction and conduct the eviction. And the next step from there is the sheriff puts that eviction on the sheriff's schedule, on their calendar for when they're available to do it. And then they go out, in our county, we're very fortunate, our sheriffs go out generally a week or so before the actual eviction is scheduled, even though they're not required by law to do that. And they provide notice that the eviction is coming. Usually about a week later, it's scheduled for eviction, and then the eviction actually occurs. Now, the time from filing the complaint to the actual eviction occurring can vary. And it can vary because the landlord can wait up to 60 days after they get that judgment to get the writ issued. And then there's another 60 days or so for the eviction to actually take place, that the writ remains in effect. So it can be as far out as several months. It can be as short as essentially if the sheriff's schedule is available, it can be as short as less than 10 days from when that complaint is heard and a judgment is entered before an eviction takes place.
Okay. And just one other question, Lisa, was I've understood that you can also pay or resolve whatever judgment that you have. I mean, literally to the sheriff. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So in Maryland, you have a right to pay and stay, it's called. So you can pay right up to the point when the sheriff does that, is there for the eviction. If the tenant has had more than 3 prior judgments in the last 12 months, the landlord can ask for what's called a writ of possession without the right to redeem. And that would mean that the tenant no longer has a right to pay and stay. And that is something we're really concerned about, because a lot of landlords have been going to court month after month after month and getting one judgment after the next, after the next, after the next. So several tenants are in a position where those landlords could ask for what's called a no right judgment. And that would prevent the tenant from being able to do that pay and stay move. We're hoping that Community Legal Services will step in some of those instances so that they can maybe challenge whether those judgments that have been entered during the moratorium would really apply to allow a landlord to get a no right judgment. We're worried about them, but in most instances, the tenant is going to be able to pay and stay, and that's what's helping us keep people in place. We're literally, swooping in the day before or the day of a scheduled eviction and telling the landlord, we've got the money, we're going to pay you, cancel this eviction, and it's working.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we've got Rachel from the Capitol. Okay, Rachel, can you hear us? All right, Brooks Dubose from the Capitol.
Hi there. I had a question about evictions as well. Given that it's not likely that there will be a 100% success rate for making sure that people are housed, are there any resources that the county can provide on the back end? Say someone is indeed evicted, and maybe for to help them be temporarily housed, hotel, shelter, etc. Is there anything of that nature that could be put in place?
I did, again, this is Kathy Koch. Yes, at the same time that we're aggressively putting the eviction prevention program in place, we are also in the process of working closely with all our partners in the county and our continuum of care to make sure to get additional resources to get as many people out of our homeless shelters and into housing. And we're fortunate enough to have different federal resources that are available for that. So that we're right now putting together a program for landlord incentive program so that our people who are difficult to house, we can get them housed. We're helping with moving expenses and first rent and last rent. And then we're going to be hooking those same people up with our the eviction prevention fund so that we're mixing and matching to be able to creatively solve the homeless issue. So we are aggressively in the process of putting that together and working with all of our partners who service the homeless in this county. Our Department of Social Services and us are in the process of putting that all together and getting that out onto the street within the next couple of weeks.
And I'd just like to follow up that as a last resort, we also have our alternative shelter that we started during the COVID pandemic. And that is an option that we have as well. But certainly we want to redirect people to other resources if possible, but we still have that as an option.
That was Pam Jordan, Deputy CAO, Health and Human Services.
Thank you, boss.
Thank you. All right, next up, John, we're going to come back to you in just a moment. Rachel, any luck on the audio? All right, next we're going to move to John Fernay. One more question on Annapolis.
I guess this is for Kathy Hughes, and you had mentioned that the folks down at Watergate, I'm not sure what the new name of the place is called, but had gotten off on, if you will, a technicality in that they weren't properly licensed for the format. I mean, it's legal, but it's a technicality. What's the situation with the tenants that are in those positions? That, I mean, if the courts have determined that a landlord is not a quote legal landlord, I mean, if somebody's squatting in my home, I think I probably have some sort of a right to get rid of them. I mean, what is the danger to these people that are getting out on, something like that?
Well, you can say that it's a technicality, but it's an important technicality because Annapolis, the city of Annapolis does require a valid license, and that's to protect the health and safety of individuals who are living in that rented property. The variety of complaints there was for most of them were for just 1 month's rent. So I'm really not sure about how much back rent the landlords are owed all around, but I know that they had folks, 2 of our clients actually had been approved for that rent. And because the landlord wasn't able to, or had not yet been able to provide the information that was necessary to Arundel Community Development Services, they couldn't release those funds. The other important thing to note there is that there were other tenants that came that morning who were actually over income for us. In other words, they were over the ACDS amount of, ACDS could not help them, but they were not, they had paid their rent. And the tenants that were there that morning were furious because I think, what happened was an error across the board with regard to the new owners. This really wasn't the tenant's fault. And in fact, before the hearings even really got started, about a third of them, the lawyer said that the folks had paid, that they realized that the folks had paid. So you know, when we go into court to try to help somebody, we're going to be looking at everything. Are they licensed because of health and safety? Do they have their lead certificate? That's also health and safety. It's critical. Is somebody in the military? You know, these are all protections that have been put into place so that people have are safe in their homes. So it's important. It's an important distinction.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, next up, we're going to go to Kate Amara.
Hi. You know what? Rachel, I'm going to ask poor Rachel. She has some of her questions in the chat, and since she's been waiting ahead of me, she's hoping someone can talk about the difference between the moratorium being in place versus now. I think that's the question I had. I'm County Executive Pittman. I think you would consider yourself a progressive Democratic lawmaker. And I know on Capitol Hill, there's a lot of liberal House members and other members of Congress who are fuming at the White House and the Biden administration for letting the federal eviction ban run out in the first place, and then for not re-upping it with an executive order. Have you reached out to the White House to express what this means for you at the very local level? What does this mean for the county in terms of outreach and how much more you'll have to do now that it is expiring? I'm hoping you can weigh in on that politically, and then maybe some folks from ACDS can weigh in on what it means practically and financially. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that everybody wants to point the finger at somebody else for how to prevent this from happening. At the end of the day, it is this work that's being done at the local level to resolve, to get the landlords paid and to keep people in until they can get their income to the level or work something out so that they can stay long-term and get through whatever financial distress that they're in. You know, the president has said that the Supreme Court has made it clear that he would, and a continuation of the federal moratorium would be immediately challenged in the courts. And the Supreme Court has already said how they would rule, that it would not be upheld unless Congress takes the action. So I guess I would say that, yes, I am frustrated that Congress was not able to take action before they recessed. But I guess Kathy or somebody could talk to the mechanics of whether, you know, how that moratorium and or the state moratorium impacts the work that's actually going on right now.
Thank you. Yes, so it definitely impacts, and you know, whether we certainly are members of a lot of national organizations that we're encouraging the federal government to extend the moratorium. And as I keep saying, is that we have the funds available. We want to help. We want to get the landlords paid. All we need is a little bit of time. And that's what those the eviction moratorium does. It gives us more time. It's not to say the landlord's not going to get paid. He probably has a better chance of getting paid if we extend those moratoriums. But again, we'll see what happens on the federal level. In the meantime, yes, we are seeing increased applications coming, as I said, as we stated from the very beginning. Applications are increasing, and the actions and the number of evictions that are being filed in the court are also certainly increasing. That's why we've increased our staff. That's why through community legal services, that's why we've added space up to the in Glen Burnie. And I think somebody asked if we're paying for the space up at Glen Burnie. No, the county has made space available in the emergency management office, which is right adjacent to the courthouse. So we've put all of these different mechanisms that we've talked about for the last 20 minutes in place in response to the fact that the moratorium is coming to an end, and that we need to be able to address those issues.
If I may follow up on that, Ms. Koch, you said you either expect applications to increase or they have already. Can you just give some hard numbers? I know earlier you said you have about 1,200 applications in the pipeline. Can you just give us an example of if that's the new application, percentage wise or something like that. And another kind of hard number figure, you said you're using federal money, federal dollars to do this. How much is that? And what's the federal funding source? Is it the CARES Act? Is it something else? And how much more will you need now that the federal eviction moratorium has ended?
Okay, so I'm going to go through the sources of funds that we have available. So phase one, which was funded through the CARES Act, in addition to local county funds and funds available through the video lottery terminal tax. And that was, we spent about approximately 4.5 and made about 1,200 payments to landlords. So that ended. And then the next phase began when the consolidated budget was passed before the end of December. And that's referred to on the national level as Emergency Rental Assistance Program, affectionately referred to as ERAP 1. And that's when we received, the county received 17 million through that program. In addition, we were eligible for 5.4 million from the state's allocation of ERAP funds. So we've gotten those two. And then when the American Rescue Plan was passed in February, that made what we refer to as ERAP 2, and that's approximately, there's $13 million available through that program. So if you add up all the resources, we had close to about 42 million through ERAP 1 and ERAP 2, which we're processing right now. And then the dollar amounts available from the state, it's approximately 37 million. And that includes an additional dollar amount that came through HUD, through the CARES Act, actually through the CARES Act through HUD, and we got 1.2 million available from that we actually applied to the state for, and they made available to the county. So we, our assessment is that we have enough funds to help everybody get current on the rent. We think we have enough funds to hopefully address all the needs in the county. That was your first question. Now, your second question.
Well, I might have to call you later to check my math. I was trying to keep up. So that's all the current funding sources. And I think you said if phase one was 1,200 payments to landlords, but that's all before this federal eviction moratorium. Yeah, so gotcha. How many 50 million, I guess, how many payments to landlords does that add up to before the moratorium just expired? And then how much do we keep hearing it's going to be like a tsunami. What are you anticipating happening now, and where will that money come from?
Okay, so the first phase, the 1,200 households that we assisted. The second phase, which began on February 16th with funds available from the feds by the end of December, of that 17 million, we've already put approximately 7 million out on the streets in payments to landlords. We have approximately over 1,200 applications that we have received, and that's starting to increase. And the last month we got a little over, as the months have gone on, we got a little over 600 in 1 month of applications. So again, yeah, that there's definitely an increase. The tsunami, again, we're seeing, yes, an increase in the court systems, and we hope we have all the processes in place to be able to address that need. And again, the dollar amounts, we feel that we have enough dollar amounts available to make sure that we get assistance to everybody who's eligible. And the eligibility is really determined by the federal program.
Thanks, Kathy. Next, we're going to wrap up with Sarah Kim from WYPR.
And Jeff, this is Rachel Pacella, real quick, just to let you know that I managed to get my ability to ask questions back. I know we're pretty late. Sorry.
Rachel, I'll follow up with you offline. Yeah, we're going to wrap up with Sarah Kim, but if you have additional questions, I'll reach out to you right after this. So Sarah Kim, WYPR.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I was just wondering if you have any data available, maybe like a breakdown demographically on who has been most impacted in the county specifically. Like, is this something that has disproportionately affected residents of color, or is it something that's been kind of pervading throughout the population of the county?
Yes, we have that data available as we're required to file with the federal government on a monthly basis. So I can get that data for you. But anecdotally, what we have seen is that it's the program is available to people at 80% and below, but we're really seeing people at a very low income, below 50% and below is the majority of our applicants that we are serving. So you'd be surprised at the number of people who are trying to live out there on very, very little amount of funds. So, but we can get that data. And certainly the minority community.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'll follow up with you with that data with Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you all next week.